Today, I would like to talk a little bit about this spiritual journey, this spirituality that we are in or is in us. And I think that the importance of this exploration is that we can see the difference between what we grew up with, what we are accustomed, the belief system that has been the way how we operate in the world. And the main difference between a religious system that maybe all of us grew up with versus spirituality is that a religion gives you beliefs, give you answers, tell you what to do, how things are, who you are, what you are. Spirituality is full of questions. I imagine that every one of you came to a moment in your life where you begin to question something about yourself, your environment, your belief system. It came that moment that you couldn't believe any longer fully the story that you grew up with. That everything that you have learned and were told you about existing and life maybe didn't make sense anymore. Are you familiar with that time in your life where you felt that you maybe was going against the current? That everybody was coming in this way, but you were going in that way. And you even felt that, am I going to lose my mind? Am I going to succeed going against everybody else? How is that possible? I want that you remember that moment right now. When was that? That you decide, that came through you, that you heard something, that you read something, that you saw something, that it tells you there have to be another way. It cannot be that this is the way how humanity came to be humans. Yeah? You remember? That really moment of great challenge that you don't even knew where to go, how to go, even what to do. Maybe stay with you for some time and you didn't even know who to talk with. Because somewhere, how, internally, there was some kind of realization that the world that you were living in didn't look like balance, didn't look like a place of truth. So every one of us must have passed through that moment where we decide to question, to ask questions, to want to know, to search for truth, for wondering who am I, what are we, where are we going, where are we coming from? And that the answer that you're receiving in your childhood didn't make sense anymore. It couldn't make sense. So this invitation today is to explore that ground and to see, am I being free from the belief system that I grew up and my family are still in? Or inadvertently, I still carrying some of that. I still carrying some of those ideas and belief without questioning. This is very important so that we can see what is the difference in the spirituality that we are engaging. And I don't want to really go into what is spirituality and have all these multiple definitions. But for me, the difference is that spirituality is investigation. So when you were meditating with your eyes closed, apparently you're watching your breath only, or become aware of the movement of attention. But you actually were learning, discovering again and again how movement of the mind take place. That nobody else can come and tell you something different. Because you begin to realize what happened to you when you decide to stay quiet, silence, and become aware of yourself. Why is that important? Because you are not believing me. You are not believing anyone. You are exercising the capacity in yourself to be autonomous, to be independent, to search for yourself within yourself, where you don't need anybody else to tell you what to do or what to believe. You are discovering by yourself, what is it that I'm made of? What is it that attention does? How we move? We become repeatedly to realize how attention moves. More that we realize that, more that you can experiment to stop movement of attention to go any place. Or when it's going to some place, you can decide, no, I don't want that thought. I don't want to think that thought. I am not going to engage in that belief that a thought is telling me. I'm my own authority. The mind conditioning by learning are not going to control me because I am here now able to see for myself. So this journey that we began in some moment of our life has been a journey of investigation. It's not a journey to go to another belief system, to another religion, or to another teacher, or to another anything. And we have to be very alert because you can see how in many communities, spirituality, we're switching from being Catholic to being Buddhist, and from being Christian to become Hinduist. And now we adopt another belief system in another deities. But still, it's a belief. Now I can turn and become into the Quran and be a Muslim, but we're doing the same thing. Now, when we enter into the world of spirituality, there is not a system or even a pathway. You must find your own pathway. We talk and we point to the direction where everyone can be looking at. But there are no way that anybody, any teacher can tell you what are you going to find. How is the mechanism of your existence? How are you going to unplug yourself of an ancient belief system that tell you who you are? Because what they tell you that you are not necessarily is the truth of who you are. So there's no way that anybody can actually take you there for yourself. So satsang is about investigating each one of us and sharing what we're finding. And in that sharing of we're finding, we can point it to where still we need to look at. Or we can redirect how are we asking the questions. Because there are many ways to ask a question. Are we actually asking a question, or we are asking a question with the answer within the question already? So the invitation of today's satsang is to discover clearly than before the difference between a belief system, a religion, a myth, to a direct discovery of ourselves. Obviously, when we sit to meditation, we may think that we are in alignment with Hinduism or Buddhism or any practice or any religion system. But in reality, no. Sitting silent, observing, cannot belong to anybody, to any religion. You know? Is the naturalness of this embodiment that we are, that soon or later, something is going to call us back to the core. Obviously, we can deny that the practices that have been developed by many different systems. But that doesn't mean that belong to them. It means that they use extensively and they slowly develop and organize people around that particular teaching, and they may try or think that they have an ownership. But contemplation, meditation is inherent in ourselves. Is what the organism wants to do when we want to rest. Asking questions of what we don't know is the nature of humanity. From the beginning of time, we have been doing this. Observing, looking, fire, fire, fire. How that can be until we create fire. Light, wow, light, 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 until came a moment that we create artificial light. So it's a matter of time that humanity will come to say, wait a second, the myth of my particular religion cannot be the truth. It can't. So in that moment, we begin to search. We begin to question and challenge everything that has been told to us. And in that, we discover the ones who came before us and asked the same questions. And some of them say, you know, what I did, I stayed quiet. I became silence. I walk alone. I ask those questions. So here we are, discovering and investigating the nature of ourselves, the nature of the mind, finding out what happened when I believe a thought, and another, and the next one. But what happened when I don't believe that thought? So this is investigation, because people think that there are many types of spirituality. But in reality, there is one: investigation, finding out. We think that there are many types of religion, but in reality, there is only one. And it is a belief system. Doesn't matter in who: God, Muhammad, Krishna, etc. Same thing. So this is the kind of invitation that I want to explore today and ever. How we understand our spiritual journey. Obviously, we listen to the one who came before us. But until now, nobody can tell us how it will be for me, for you, to anyone. They cannot guarantee how the structure or belief system that you grew up with is going to be destroyed. It can be scary to go against the current. It can be scary to decide to don't believe any longer the sacred scriptures. It's blasphemous. It challenges the structure of what we believe in. It challenges the structure of our world. But can we dare to actually question? And sometimes we believe that we got rid of that a long time ago. But when you look closely, many times you are still operating in some hidden way under that determination that they told us. It takes some degree of courage to decide to find for ourselves what is true, what is real, and then we will see how we look the sacred scriptures. What made them sacred? You know, we forget that the sacred scriptures were written by men who created God, toward which we need to submit. It's not that God created sacred scriptures. It's that we create the scripture and create the God. So it had come the moment in this lifetime where we are able to see this with much more clarity than before, without being burned, killed, persecuted, devastated. We have that freedom now. We don't know how long we're going to have this freedom, because this freedom can end. And we saw, we never know, but we were very close to see that we could lose the freedom to question what is considered sacred. So the invitation always is to come back to oneself and find out, how can I discover my own self, my own truth? It's very interesting, but for example, when we look into Greece mythology, very beautiful mythology, very wise. From the Christian perspective, we see that like profane, profanous, or I forget the word, but it's against our belief of one God. But when we look closely, the mythology, we can begin to see the building, the construction of the gods and the goddesses in an image of ourselves. The observation of how people behave and related gave birth to a whole mythology or aspect of the psyche that for their culture, it was useful. And same happened with us. In our tradition, a God was created very similar than humankind. You know, a big father who punish or do whatever it did, demand. But the image of God has changed since that time. We have moved from that God to even a loving God, a peaceful God, a God that doesn't demand sacrifices of animals or humans, a God that looks like is more friendly, more close. We even had come to the idea that God is within. Just look what happened, that trajectory of thousands of years ago when God was up there. And now we open even to the realization that God is within. How that could be? Well, that tells us how God is a creation of humankind and obviously is going to change and is changing and has changed. But what has not changed totally yet is the idea of a God. If there is such a thing, how is that? What is that we call God? So all those questions is what spirituality brings us into, to really the big question of life, the importance of what are we here for. So when we look in different kind of religious system, you're going to find a different kind of origin. Not everyone have a paradise and a snake who seduced Eve to eat the apple, and from that moment she seduced the man and took him down into a disaster. There is other tradition where the world comes from the mouth of a baby, that when he born, the mother saw inside of his mouth the whole world being born. Totally different conceptions. There are other small civilizations all over the world where we come from reptiles. We evolve from animals. And our ancestors are snakes. And still we have that reptilian brain. That is the oldest brain that we have. So science is discovering that, wow, our brain is a reptilian. So we may actually merge from them, because that is the part of the brain that is connected to survival, to the mechanism of survival. So you can tell that all those different religions have totally different way to conceive the creation of existence. Some of them have gods and goddesses. Others have animals. So everything here is highly relative. Everything in the mind, it cannot be taken for the truth. So in this creation myth that we live in, we begin to realize that it's possible to be free from any belief and to find directly by ourselves how are we made of, how the mechanism of thought work, how are we here in this moment, and what is here. So these are the elements of transcendence. So spirituality is engaged in going beyond mind, conditioning, belief system, and direct us to direct knowing, to direct investigation, to direct inquiry. It's not a secret that is held by a few. It's available to everyone who is willing to pay the attention, to put the energy to do what it takes. And then it's possible to open to new dimension of existence. It's possible to know ourselves in a deeper way. And in that, we realize that if I know myself, I know the whole existence. In that investigation, it's possible to realize that at the core of my being is the beginning and the end of all existence. And we cannot learn this or remember. We only can realize for ourselves. And in that journey that we call spirituality, human consciousness is leading us into a new understanding of existence, into a freedom from the slavery of beliefs and thought conditioning. So this is the possibility if we want to know what is true. We only can find within ourselves.